coronavirus and monkeypox, each bad enough on their own. But what if these two were to come together to turn, like Starsky and Hutch, into some immune-busting duo? That's what we're examining tonight. COVID and monkeypox. Can they come together? Or indeed, have they already come together? And is this the explanation for the current widespread? It's Fintan Dunn reporting. It's the beautiful truth on the 1st of August at 9 p.m. GMT. Well, let me lay your concerns about whether they've already come together to rest. Because if they had, we wouldn't see this monkeypox spreading in confined risk groups like gay males. We'd see it spreading widely from granny to grandkid and not confined within particular risk groups. So something else is going on. Not to worry, says the mainstream. The monkeypox is a DNA virus, unlike coronavirus. So, there's no comparison between the two. For example, DNA viruses are much more stable. They don't mutate as often, and they operate in the core, the nucleus of the cell, whereas mRNA does not. The two are completely different, we're told. But hey, there's something you're not being told. Right, so there's the pox virus entering the cell and moving into the inside of the cell. Here in the very middle is the nucleus. Now, if the pox virus is a DNA virus, then we would expect, like all DNA virus, it would head straight for the nucleus to start persuading the nucleus to start churning out copies. If you like, the nucleus is where the photocopying machine is. But here's the thing, with this virus, it doesn't need to go to the nucleus. It has its own photocopier. This is a very, very sophisticated virus. This thing, and you're here to see it cut in half like a grape so you can see the inside of it. This is like a spaceship. This is a very complex virus, and it has its own photocopying machinery inside. All it needs is some access to raw materials and resources. The difficulty from our point of view is, as you see here in this little illustration here, it's talking about it using its own mRNA. That it starts producing mRNA just like the way we introduce mRNA. So you have mRNA belonging to a monkeypox, which could potentially, in a co-infection situation, be swimming around inside here in the cell with mRNA from COVID, either vaccine COVID or real COVID. So the two can coexist, and they do coexist in the cytoplasm of the cell. That's different then, isn't it? Because it's possible that these two could come in contact with each other either in host populations or deliberately in a laboratory setting. And that's why there's some concern. An article published on RFK's Children's Health Defense says monkeypox cases spread report shows Gates Foundation, the WHO, pharma execs all took part in a monkeypox pandemic simulation, which was examining the potential for a monkeypox pandemic that might occur sometime around, say, just picking a date out of a hat, May of 2022, which turns out to be oddly prophetic, because that's exactly when one did turn up. What concerns me about that is the list of attendees at that, the people who were there, some very worrying people, chaired by former US Secretary of Energy, but including individuals coming from the US National Security Council, coming from Janssen Research, coming from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, coming from Johnson & Johnson Global Public Health, R&D. Of course, it's no surprise that they came up with recommendations including bolstering international systems for risk assessment, developing national level triggers for early pandemic response. And here's something very worrying in that report. They said, and you can see really that, regardless of what pox there might be, any old excuse to come up with these recommendations, that's the real game here, isn't it? Any old excuse will do, even if we have to fabricate one, or worse, create one. So national governments must adopt a no-regrets approach to pandemic response, taking anticipatory action as opposed to reacting to mounting case counts and fatalities, which are lagging indicators. Now, you know what that means? That means that they want to set up a system of triggers such that you have no regret activation. In other words, you're not even responding to the actual situation of whether you have a problem in your hospitals or not. You've no choice. The UN is now mandating that these triggers kick in. Omicron seems to have picked up a piece of the common cold during the course of its evolution. So, if that's so, why couldn't it be possible that this poxvirus could pick up a piece of the spike protein and suddenly have huge infectivity capabilities? Well, let's think about it. Yes, they are swimming in the same cytoplasm inside in the cell, the spike protein and this thing here, but this is a very ancient, very highly evolved, very stable spaceship with a very specialized design, and it's already achieved entry into a cell. Why does it need to mess around with looking for new ways to get into cells when it's got really sophisticated ones? They enter cells by a multi-step process consisting of attachment, hemoffusion, core entry, and 4 proteins are involved in attachment. We still don't know quite how, right? And fusion is activated by low pH, and a complex of 11 proteins governs the entry steps. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure that something as sophisticated as that would be, can just bolt on a piece of spike protein, and just incorporate that in and suddenly turn into CoV plus pox. I'm not sure. It's like saying, for example, that I can take an alternator off of my Ford and quite happily stick it on my Chevy van. Or even worse, a fan belt or a head gasket. These are different things, a Ford and a Chevy, and they just are not interoperable. And I think the same logic does apply here. So I think for the moment, despite the concerns that we may have for it, that I don't think that the two of them are hooked up in order to produce a superbug. But that doesn't mean we have no concerns, because another possibility is we know, I think now, from available alternative independent analysis, that we have impaired the innate immune system of human beings with the responses that we have rolled out to this problem we had with COVID. And therefore there is a possibility that that might explain some of the resurgence that we're seeing globally in this monkeypox. Jury's out on that, and we don't know the answer on that yet, but we will follow up closely on that. But certainly the keys to understanding what may be going on with monkeypox and whether that has a link to innate immunity is to get answers to these kinds of questions here about what percentage of these monkeypox cases are vaccinated, what vaccine was used, when was the last vaccine, and break down the demographics. That would help us get the answers. This is Dr. Philip Macmillan. His video is in the links which I'll supply with this video. You can get it in the description. And he's calling for that information, and that really, we need that information in order to help us answer the question as to whether it's possible that there is something which has occurred which has compromised innate immunity. So that's it for this presentation on YouTube. I hope you like the new format where we're also doing uncensored content on Rumble, and you can check the last video on YouTube for a link to that. You'll get the links in the description at all times to the uncensored content, which we'll also do off YouTube. But in the meantime, that's it for this edition on YouTube. I will be back tomorrow with both YouTube and uncensored Rumble content. Particularly interesting stuff. I'd advise you not to miss that. Please do check back with me, in as much as I've been able to reassure on the issue of monkeypox, I think, for the moment, and ask some legitimate questions. What I have to say tomorrow is not reassuring, and it's something I think you'll prefer not to miss. Okay, I'll be back with that, censored and uncensored, tomorrow. And thanks very much for joining me. I'll also get to some of your comments. Thanks for those on Rumble and on YouTube. Until then, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting.